Freedom Rangers, Cornish Crosses, and Cornish Roasters all have been processed, and we have some great results to share with you. So we got the first batch of Cornish Roasters and Freedom Rangers in the beginning of April, and we just processed them last week. So they were 11 weeks old. About 11 weeks old. A lot of commercially grown chickens are fully mature at about 7 weeks, and we intentionally got chickens that grew a little bit more slowly because we were a little apprehensive of the ones that grow super quickly.
But we did order them.
We did order them, the Cornish Cross.
They came about 3 weeks after the first batch came.
Yes.
So we ordered them that way intentionally so that the Cornish Cross would finish at the same time as the first batch, because the Cornish Cross is ready in 8 weeks, whereas the others were ready in 11.
Yep. The Cornish Cross were much smaller than the Roasters. The Roasters were really big birds, and we like that. I personally like to have a big chicken. I like having leftovers. And when we were moving them around, we remarked on the difference in weight between the Cornish Roasters and the Freedom Rangers, who you may remember were in the tractor together. Initially,
we set out to monitor their daily weight gains and their feed consumption, and we were going to do a really heavy analysis at the end and determine like which chicken was the most efficient, which one would be really the best for the thrifty homestead. But after a couple weeks into daily weight monitoring and all that, things really picked up on the homestead. We had a lot going on all of a sudden, and we didn't keep up with the weighing, especially when the chickens came outside to the outdoor brooder. It was really easy when they were in the house in the garage, but the outdoor brooder just added a whole nother level of complexity to things. So we don't have the daily results that we were looking for, but we do have some end results we wanted to talk about. So it was actually 3 days ago we processed the chickens. 4 days ago we loaded them up out of the tractor. We had to take them to our neighbor in 2 batches because we couldn't fit them all. It wound up being 53 birds in the second batch. Yeah. Earlier we did the first batch, which was 20. So in total we had 73 birds processed. Out of 77, right? We ordered 75. I think we must have extras. We must have gotten a couple extras because we had a few. Well, we had one dead on arrival. Yeah. One was injured on arrival. Its leg was broken that I had to put down. And then we had a couple very early on that died in the first couple weeks. Yeah, one of them got pecked a lot and ended up with an infection. And that was really sad because we nursed her in the brooder in the garage for 2 weeks, and she just didn't make it. So that was sad, but we did everything we could, sort of giving her antibiotics. We ended up with 73. We really expected a much higher mortality rate than that. We did, and we ourselves eat about 55 to 60 chickens a year, so our goal was to produce enough for ourselves, and we ended up with a few extras, so we sold a handful and then gave a few others to some friends and family and neighbors who've been super helpful over the past year that we've been here. Of the 73 birds that we had processed, roughly 20 of them were Cornish Cross, and the balance was the Freedom Rangers and the Cornish Roasters. Mm-hmm. So the Cornish Cross was the most disappointing in as far as the end results, the final weight of the animal. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because we were underfeeding them. I don't know what the circumstances were that created this, but the Cornish Crosses were, not to mention visibly smaller. You could just look at them and say, wow, that bird is a lot smaller than that Freedom Ranger and the Cornish Roaster. But their weight, when you picked them up, it was very obvious. But the final result, the average weight for the Cornish Crosses was between 3 and 4 pounds, which is kind of pathetic. Well, it's kind of pathetic considering that they supposedly were mature. I mean, visibly they weren't, but we had already made the appointment for them to be processed, so we were committed. So if they had had another 3 weeks, they probably would have come out around 5 pounds. Right, but that would have been way longer than they were supposed to have gone. So
if you're going to do Cornish Cross and you want a big bird, give them like 9 weeks.
Or feed them more than we did. I
We
guess.
fed them a lot, actually.
The next on the list was the Freedom Ranger. The Freedom Rangers they were by far the hardiest. We didn't lose any Freedom Rangers. We had no mortality with them whatsoever. They looked the best.
The beautiful birds.
They feathered out the best. They didn't have weird feather issues going like the Cornish Cross did. They didn't feather out right, and
the Freedom Rangers feathered out very young as well.
Very young, and
which was good.
And like you said, they're very good looking birds. They look like
beautiful.
A chicken, how it's supposed to look.
Yes.
The Freedom Rangers did better than the Cornish Cross.
Yes.
Obviously, they were here for 3 weeks longer. But
and how old were they? 10 weeks? 11?
About 11 weeks.
About 11 weeks old.
The Freedom Ranger finished between 4 and 5 pounds, which was better than the Cornish Cross. It's not bad overall.
No. It's a good size for a chicken.
But I was hoping for a little bit more out of the Freedom Ranger. But 4 to 5 pounds, again, not bad. They definitely don't have the breast meat that we have experienced with the traditional Cornish Cross or even the Cornish Roaster. When I would pick one up, it felt like picking up one of our laying hens. That you just felt that breast bone, the sharp bone in the middle, and not a lot of meat on either side of the bone. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the Freedom Ranger. I think it was a good bird. It was very hardy, and I'm pleased with it overall. Now, the Cornish Roaster was our biggest bird.
Yes, they did not disappoint.
Hands down, there was no disputing which bird was the best performer as far as putting on meat. The Cornish Roasters came in between 5 and 7 pounds, and the 5-pounders there weren't many of them. It was just it was like 5.5 pounds, somewhere in that range. A lot of them were 6 to 7 pounds.
So that means that they weighed live 8 to 9 pounds, which is pretty big, and they were 11 weeks old. And the Cornish Roasters, in my opinion, looked pretty good once they got to be their mature age. Some of them did have some feather issues when they were younger, and the Cornish Cross had a lot of feather issues. But the Cornish Roasters turned out pretty well. I would say probably 25% of them had feather issues. But if you're looking for a really big chicken to put on your table, I would suggest the Cornish Roaster. I was pleased.
There was definitely some personality differences between the birds. The Cornish Cross birds were the most mellow. They're very chill. Now, going into the chicken tractor to give them feed was a very passive experience, while going into the other tractor with the Freedom Rangers and the Cornish Roasters was a little more stressful, because they were so much more active and aggressive that it was a frenzy going on during the feeding. And
we also had twice as many in the tractor, which was our mistake. We tried to separate them and it did not go well. So if we were to do it again, I would probably have a third tractor and just put 20 or so in each tractor and put them in by breed. So final recap. At supposed maturity of 8 weeks old, the Cornish Cross were 3 to 4 pounds. At full maturity at 11 weeks old, the Freedom Rangers were 4 to 5 pounds. And also at 11 weeks old, the Cornish Roasters weighed in at 5 to 7 pounds. So they are the winners. We also fed them all the exact same thing. So we fed them peas, and they also got some super nice oats. So we soaked oat groats and rolled oats, gave them some of that. And then we also gave them really nice scratch and peck organic grower feed. We went through a lot of feed. Oh my gosh. So if you want to raise chickens to eat organically, be prepared to shell out. But they are delicious and juicy. Best chicken I've ever had, and I'm looking forward to doing it again.
Highest mortality, Cornish Cross.
Cornish Cross. Yeah.
Most natural bird, the Freedom Ranger.
Totally.
And best all-around meat bird for an intensive management situation, Cornish Roaster.
Yeah, totally. Cornish Roaster.
If you want a low maintenance, extensive management system, the Freedom Rangers would work really well. I think just having them out on pasture, you could probably just free range them. They behave so much like a normal chicken, scratching and foraging, and their vitality is very strong. I would be comfortable just having them wandering around the property, and when you need to go get a meat bird, just see about going snatching one up and cooking it. But if you wanted to do an intensive bulk project like that, I think that the Roasters was a little bit better the way to go.
I agree. We definitely got our money's worth with the Roasters, and can't wait to eat some more.